I tried to save my brother from marrying someone toxic, became the family scapegoat, watched him cut ties with everyone who loves him. Now my kids are growing up as strangers to their own cousins, and I'm stuck making a yearly phone call to him. The beginning of all this goes back to 2021. For context, I'm 32 now, my older brother is 29, and Megan, my younger brother's fiancée, is 25 as of 2025. And in my family, first impressions matter. Honestly, they matter too much. One wrong move on day one, and you're climbing uphill for years. When my wife first met my older brother, she made what he considered a bad first impression. She didn't stand when he walked in to shake his hand. She was heavier back then, pretty self-conscious, and it genuinely didn't occur to her that staying seated could be interpreted as rude. But in my family? Oh, that gets noticed immediately. He brought it up to me later, annoyed, thinking she was being disrespectful. I explained the situation, he eased up and we moved on. She meant no harm. It was just an awkward moment, not a character flaw. But then came Megan. The first time I met her was in 2019 before all the chaos that followed. My younger brother brought her to my parents' lake house, so they could officially introduce her to the family. My wife and I were looking forward to meeting her, trying to keep an open mind, wanting to give her a fair shot, especially knowing how intense first impressions can be in our household. They pull up to the lake house, and before they even make it to the front steps, I already hear her yelling at my brother.
Loud.
Aggressive. She didn't want his help carrying something and was chewing him out for even offering. Not exactly the warm introduction I was expecting. My wife and I exchanged one of those, oh boy, here we go looks. That was strike one. Still, we tried. We invited them out on the jet skis, thinking maybe some time on the lake would loosen everyone up. Out there, it's peaceful, just water, sky, and room to talk without the parental pressure. At one point, while we're drifting and chatting, Megan looks at my wife's tattoos. My wife has one on each thigh. Nothing wild, nothing offensive. But because of my parents' religious background, body art was complicated. We eventually worked through it, and my parents came to accept it, but early on my wife always covered them out of respect during the adjustment phase. Megan asks her, "Do your parents ever say anything about your tattoos?" My wife answers calmly, "Not anymore." Simple. Honest. Diplomatic. Then Megan immediately fires back with, "I dare them to say something about my tattoos. I'll cuss them out." And she said it with her whole chest. No hesitation, no awareness, no respect for the environment she was stepping into. My wife and I both just sat there on the jet ski like, what? This is someone meeting her boyfriend's family for the first time. At their home. On their lake. And she's bragging about cussing them out? Awesome first impression, right? In that moment, I knew things weren't going to go smoothly with her. Not because of a misunderstanding or nerves or an awkward slip-up, but because she seemed to walk into every situation ready for a fight. Loud, reactive, confrontational. And in my family, that hits like a lightning strike. Now we jump to late 2021, when everything that had been simmering beneath the surface finally reached a boiling point. My younger brother's wedding was approaching, and I was one of the groomsmen. It should have been a time filled with excitement and celebration. Instead, all anyone could talk about was Megan, and absolutely none of it was positive. When I say everyone, I mean everyone. Family, friends, people who had only been in her orbit for a short period of time. They all had something to say, and not a single word was flattering. Even our grandmother, the sweetest woman alive, pulled me aside a few days before the wedding. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I wish he weren't marrying her."
Hearing that gutted me.
All I could manage was, "I know, Grandma, but we at least have to be happy for him." Saying it out loud felt like I was choking down something sharp. For years, I had been hearing stories about how my brother's friends stopped spending time with him. His best man, who had been like a brother to him, barely tolerated Megan. According to him, she was toxic, controlling, and downright hostile toward anyone who had been in my brother's life before she showed up. And it wasn't just she rubs people the wrong way. No, this was a pattern. A wedge driven between him and every support system he'd ever had.
I didn't want to get involved.
My relationship with my brother has always been complicated. Not bad, but fragile in a way that made me tread lightly. He's never been someone who speaks up. He bottles everything, swallows conflict whole, and never revisits it. So the idea of confronting him about the woman he was about to spend the rest of his life with it terrified me. I genuinely feared the repercussions. I talked to my wife about it, voice shaking, hands trembling a bit. I didn't want to lose my brother, but I also didn't want to stand by silently while he made a decision that everyone, literally everyone, believed would hurt him. After a long conversation, we decided that his best man and I needed to talk to him. It felt like the last possible moment to try. We chose a cigar bar 2 days before the wedding. The three of us drove together, and looking back, it really was like an ambush. He was trapped in the truck with us, no escape, no soft lead-in. I did the classic, hey, don't take offense, but, which, let's be honest, always means something offensive is coming. We told him everything. Or at least the things we thought he needed to hear. His best man spoke first, explaining how close they had been, practically brothers, but Megan had pushed him out, rejecting him, isolating my brother from his old life. I brought up how so many members of our family found her immature, disrespectful, abrasive. I didn't mention what our grandmother said. I couldn't. That felt like crossing a line. The air in the truck turned thick. You could have cut through the tension with a butter knife. My brother listened, silent, stiff. He didn't argue.
He didn't agree. He didn't do anything.
Just sat there absorbing everything like a statue. That's how he is. Conflict goes in, nothing comes out. The drive back was brutal. Almost no one spoke. I stared out the window the whole way, heart pounding, stomach in knots, knowing I had just detonated a bomb and had no idea where the pieces would fall. The next day, it hit me like a freight train. I was a complete emotional mess. I kept imagining him hating me, resenting me, feeling betrayed right before one of the biggest days of his life. I ended up breaking down in a sub shop, full-on crying, barely able to breathe, while my wife sat beside me trying to comfort me. I was grief-stricken in a way I didn't even fully understand at the time. That's pretty much how everything went leading into the wedding, messy, tense, and full of unspoken resentment, but nothing prepared me for how the actual day played out. The wedding happened, and honestly, it was one disaster after another disguised as a celebration. They seated my parents, his parents, off to the side of the groom's party table. Not at the family section. Not anywhere near a place of honor. No, they were shoved against a wall by the bathrooms, like some sort of afterthought. Meanwhile, Megan's parents were placed at the main table overlooking the entire room like royalty. My older brother, who is also a groomsman, quietly asked Megan why our parents were stuck in the worst seats in the venue. It wasn't rude, just a casual, confused whisper. And she lost it, violently shouting at him, in front of people, escalating instantly from zero to nuclear. She practically kicked him out of the room. The reception hadn't even settled in yet, and we were already in meltdown mode. And as a fun cherry on top, she had previously told my wife not to be pregnant at the wedding. Yes, you read that right. As if pregnancy is something you schedule around someone else's ego. Ironically, we were pregnant at the time, very early, but we hadn't told anyone out of respect because we didn't want to overshadow anything. Imagine being told your existence, your baby, would be an inconvenience at her wedding. It was one of the most surreal, insulting moments I've ever witnessed. After the wedding, months passed, and the tension only got thicker. My brother and Megan stopped responding regularly. Whenever I texted him about playing games, something that had always been our bonding time, he'd ignore it. I tried to be understanding. He worked 10-plus-hour days, and exhaustion can make anyone withdraw. But deep down, I knew something else was brewing. I eventually reached out to Megan directly, to clear the air. At first, it went better than expected. We talked multiple times, 4, maybe 5 calls, each lasting over an hour. One call even included my wife. I thought we were genuinely making progress, working through misunderstandings, finally opening a space to rebuild things. What I didn't know then was that the second we hung up, she would run to my brother, twist everything, and vent to him as if I had personally attacked her. I thought I was extinguishing a controlled burn. Meanwhile, she was dumping buckets of gasoline on the fire and waving a fan over it. And my brother? He never joined a single call. Not once. Not even after I asked. Not even after I reached out to him separately. He let her speak for both of them, which only made everything feel more lopsided, more unfair, more out of control. The final phone call was the breaking point. I asked her, truly asked, from a place of desperation, what the hell was happening? Why were our phone calls calm, productive, sometimes even friendly, yet afterward, everything was worse? Why were my attempts to fix things only causing more chaos? That's when her mask dropped. She told me she didn't want to hear any of this anymore. That I was making things up. That I was blowing everything out of proportion. It was like nothing we discussed before had ever happened. Suddenly, the hours of understanding, mutual empathy, and problem-solving vanished. I told her that didn't make sense, that I wasn't imagining our conversations. But she steamrolled right over it. She said she was sick of hearing about my family's drama. She said I was twisting things. She said I was the problem. And then she started swearing at me. I snapped. Months of stress, hurt, confusion, it all erupted. I called her immature. We exchanged F-bombs. It was the first time I'd ever spoken to her like that, but it felt like the only language she was listening for. And that was it. I haven't talked to her since. It's a shame, maybe the biggest shame of all, because I grew up surrounded by my cousins. Holidays, summers, random weekends, we were inseparable. That was the childhood I imagined for my own kids. I picture my daughter and son running around with their cousins at the lake house or big family gatherings, forming those same memories that last a lifetime. Instead, I'm living in a reality where I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son, and my brother has a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn, and they might as well be strangers. I've done my part. I really have. I've swallowed my pride more times than I can count. I've apologized, I've initiated conversations, I've tried repairing things piece by piece, even though I knew deep down that speaking up about Megan, defending my family, defending myself, would probably cost me my relationship with my brother. I became the martyr, because everyone else kept their hands in their pockets. They whispered behind closed doors, but when it came time to confront anything, silence. I took all the hits. I carried the weight alone. And my brother? To this day, he refuses to talk about our conflict. It's like he emotionally shuts down the second anything difficult comes up. He's so expressionless, so unreachable when it comes to emotional stress that it feels like staring into a brick wall. My parents see it. Everyone sees it. But no one can break through it. The last time we tried, really tried, to address it was winter of 2023. We all visited my grandma, and the tension was unbearable. Every interaction felt like holding my breath. I was fed up, completely done. I didn't want to be around him or his family anymore. Why should I? Why continue to subject myself, my wife, my kids to this emotional minefield? Why pretend we're a normal family when the truth is we're barely speaking? And worst of all, I had to explain it to my daughter. She played with his daughter that day, happily, innocently, the way kids do. And I had to gently tell her not to get too attached. Because the truth, and it kills me to say this, is that in my brother's eyes, she's not really family. Not in the way cousins should be. Not in the way we were growing up. She will never be close to his kids the way she deserves to be, and it's not her fault. It's because of him. Because of what we've become. That night, I snapped. I told my dad to get him outside so we could finally talk, really talk. No more avoidance. No more silence. Just two brothers hashing things out. My heart was pounding. I was angry, beyond angry, pissed, hurt, exhausted, pent up after years of emotional strain. When he came out, I let everything pour out of me. All the hurt, all the betrayal, all the confusion. I shed tears. I told him I wanted us to be brothers again. I told him I didn't want to keep living like this. And then my dad, for some godforsaken reason, decided that was the perfect moment to make a joke. Some stupid, dismissive comment about how serious I looked, completely derailing the moment. The emotional air evaporated instantly. The conversation collapsed. Everything I had worked myself up to say, ruined. I don't know if I've ever felt so defeated. Still, despite all that, we continued sending Christmas gifts to his children because my wife insisted we shouldn't punish the kids for their parents' behavior. And she was right. They're innocent. They're my blood. They didn't ask for any of this. But last year, I stopped. I couldn't do it anymore. It felt pointless, like sending gifts into a void. Like pretending to be part of their lives when I'm clearly not, and probably never will be. The only advice that has ever stuck with me came from a man I deeply respect, Dennis, my pseudo-uncle. He married into the family years ago, and even though the marriage ended, he still shows up for us. He told me once, always try to repair your relationship with your brother. Don't let pride turn into regret. He told me about how things fell apart with his father and how he never got the chance to fix it. I listened. I took it to heart, even though I think my situation is beyond saving. Still, last December, I gave it one more try. I called my brother. We talked for 30 minutes, if you can call it talking. It was all small talk. Hollow words. He was emotionless, monotone, clearly uninterested. But I promised Dennis I would call once a year.